Okay, so one of the skills that you need for the rookie gymnastics challenge is the log roll. A log roll is a straight roll. So could you put your arms out nice and straight and your legs out nice and straight? And can you make sure that your arms are off the floor and your legs are off the floor? And as you rotate round on your body, can you make sure your arms and legs don't touch the floor? Okay, nice and slowly and controlled. Okay, another skill that we're going to need is an egg roll. An egg roll is a tuck shape roll. So can you put your knees together, put your feet flat on the floor and put your hands on the floor? And I want you to stay in a tuck position the whole way through, keeping your hands in exactly that position. You're going to roll over onto your back and then onto your knees. And that is an egg roll. Okay, another skill that we're going to do is called the egg straddle roll. So we need a straddle shape in the middle of our egg roll. So we've already done an egg roll. An egg roll is a tuck shape. So we are going to start on our knees, we're then going to roll over onto our back, come up into a sitting position, into a straddle, and then tuck back into a tuck shape.
So first of all, we do bunny hops, travelling along the length of the mat. Off you go, Isla, and we're looking for hands flat, bottom coming up high, if we can get into that tuck shape, because we're really taking our weight on hands.
So a teddy bear roll is a straddle roll, and we need to have our legs nice and wide apart, our toes are pointed and our hands are on our knees. We're going to rotate onto our shoulder, onto our back, then onto our other shoulder and then sit up. A common mistake is what pupils tend to do is to go straight back onto their back rather than going onto their shoulder. So if you'd like to go onto one shoulder, onto your back and sitting up, and the same again, nice and controlled. And in order to extend that as a skill, we can then have our arms out and repeat the same movements that we've just done. The shoulder stand is a balance which we hold for at least 3 seconds. And we put our bottom up in the air, our legs are up nice and straight, our toes are pointed, and for the basic shoulder stand, our hands are tucked by our hips. The next shoulder stand is the advanced shoulder stand. And this time, we don't put our hands by our hips, but we left our hands on the floor. The rock and roll is the end part of a forward roll. So on its own, to practice this, we want our hands on our knees or just below our knees, and we are going to stay in a tightly tucked position and rock onto our back and back up to a sitting position. And we're going to do this 3 times. The common mistake what we find is that children will take their hands away from their knees because they don't have the core strength to keep in a tuck position. So we can support by putting our hands behind our back, one hand here and one hand on the knee. In COVID, perhaps not a good idea, but if we didn't have COVID, we could support like this. So backwards and forwards, and back up. Brilliant. When we do a normal tuck roll like this in our sequence, we are going to do it once, but this time we're going to have our hands by our side, knees together, and rocking onto our back and sitting back up again, just once. The next progression for the forward roll or the rock and roll is to then do 3 forward and rock and rolls backwards and forwards, and our partner is going to assist us by standing with his hands out in front, 1 foot in front of the other so that he's balanced, and our partner is going to roll backwards and forwards 3 times and then put his arms out. The next progression of a forward roll starts in a straddle shape. We're going to have our legs nice and wide apart. Our palms of our hands are going to be put down on the floor with our fingers spread nice and wide apart. Our partner behind is going to hold up however many fingers they want. And the person doing the roll is going to shout how many fingers that person is holding.
3.
This encourages the person who is doing a roll to put their chin on their chest, which makes the whole body go into a tuck shape as opposed to their chin up, creating a straight shape which will then make them slap onto the ground. So as we roll over, we do it nice and steadily, landing gently onto the back of the head, stroke neck and shoulders, not touching the rest of the head on the floor, and then going into a sitting position with our legs nice and straight and our arms out in front. The next progression for a forward roll is to go into a tuck position, hands then knees together, hands then go down on the floor, tuck our chin onto our chest, rotate over onto our back and into a sitting position with arms and legs out nice and straight. The final part of the forward roll is to standing. So we are going to do exactly the same as what we have just done, but we are going to finish by standing up. We are going to put our hands down on the floor, we are going to tuck our chin on our chest, we are going to rotate over and stand up with feet together and not put our hands down to assist us standing up. Okay, this is a front support to side support to back support. Front support, we should be in a press-up type position with our hands shoulder width apart and our body nice and straight. Common fault is to have the bottoms in the air, so nice and straight. We're then going to rotate round onto our side, lifting one arm up, staying in a straight position, and then rotating over onto our back. As we finish, the hips should be pushed up towards the ceiling and the toes should be pointed.
So first of all, we do bunny hops, travelling along the length of the mat. Off you go, Isla. We're looking for hands flat, bottom coming up high, if we can get into that tuck shape, because we're really taking our weight on hands. So the next stage is to do bunny hops, trying to go from one side of the mat to the other. Off you go, Isla. Same thing, hands down, bottom staying high, knees together. Then we can have a go at doing exactly the same thing but going over the bench. There's Isla doing that backwards and forwards over the bench. Same thing, bottom trying to come up high into that tuck shape. Now could you try and do it and kick your legs up as you go over? Okay. Next, trying to wheel actually over the bench. So if you watch Isla doing this, and she's trying to now extend her legs, and each time she does it she should be able to get those legs up a little bit higher. But we're trying to get that hand pattern, so we've put the spots in a semicircle. I'm not bothered by how tidy it looks, but it's about getting hand, hand, foot, foot, and the child feeling confident in taking again that way to. And then what we do is we start to make the circle more of a straight line, so that they're really having to work on hand, hand, foot, foot. Still not worried about the legs. We've straightened up the spots so they're in a straight line. Still not worried about her being able to get her legs straight, but that will come with time because the bottom's nice and high and over the hands, and then we can see. This is what COVID lines are for. They're for practicing your cartwheel on a straight line. Yeah.